Okay, so we'll get started. So this is Kiran Munkur with the Chitrapur Heritage Foundation. We have an exciting morning here in the United States and evening in India. We will be viewing a presentation by Milind Koppikar on AI for living. Before I get into it and introduce him, we will start with Sabha Prarambha by Ashok Kulkarni, board member of Chitrapur Heritage Foundation.
ॐ दक्षिणास्य समारम्भा शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमा अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्ता स्मर्या गुरुपरम्परा श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमव्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। परिज्ञानाश्रम श्रीगुरुशङ्कर परिज्ञानाश्रम शङ्कर सद्गुरु केशव वामन कृष्ण पाण्डुरङ्ग आनन्द परिज्ञान गुरु सद्यो जात शङ्कर सद्गुरु गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुर्साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः।
Okay, thank you, Ajok Mom. And Kiran Munkur here. This is the 20th anniversary of the Chitrapur Heritage Foundation. And I'd like to briefly introduce to you um, Milind Koppikar Mom, who has dedicated his life to various philanthropic causes. And he has a passion for technology, especially with artificial intelligence, has done quite a lot of work to help the underprivileged, to help educate rural India. So a little bit about himself. He built the first AI-based, artificial intelligence-based market research tool for Qualtrics and led a $20 billion IPO, initial public offering. He teaches at IIT Bombay and the University of Utah. He has an MBA from the prestigious Kellogg School of Management, master's degree from Stanford University, and he's a gold medalist from IIT Bombay. And he also, in addition to technology and raising his two sons who are in college, who are in high school, sorry, and he represented India in the World Swimming Championship. And he has a total of 31 patents, the United States patents, being a very innovative person. So, with no further ado, we'll have Milind Mom here, and the screen is yours, Milind Mom.
Yeah, Jai Shankar everyone, and thanks Kiran ma'am, and thanks Ashok ma'am for the introduction and the Sabha Praram Prarthana. What I'll do is without much ado, just jump straight into the topic, which is around AI. AI for, we call it AI for everyday living. Let me just talk about the agenda, what I do plan to cover. So today I'll be talking about four things. First of all, let's try to quickly go through how AI works. So here I'll just try to build some intuition, right? Because it's very hard to go into the math and the science behind it in a short time frame. But I'll just try to cover the intuition on how to think about how this AI works. Then we'll look at some examples of how you and I can use AI for our everyday tasks. Okay, so we look at a few everyday things that we all do, and how AI has been creeping in into those tasks. And if it hasn't, it will, it's just a matter of time before AI starts automating a lot of those tasks. So I'll to show you some examples. We'll then try to create one of those tasks on our own using AI. What is also often called, you might hear the term prompt engineering. So we'll try to run an example of prompt engineering. And lastly, we'll talk about the risks and dangers of AI, okay? Because I think what is also happening with every good, there's also a lot of bad, right? So as AI has been offering a lot of benefits, there are people who are also beginning to misuse it to our detriment. So we'll just talk about that and what we can do there. Yeah, and that's how we'll wrap up today's session. And of course, we can open it up for for questions. This is what we're going to cover, right? So we have it here. Now let's move to the what is AI. So the way I like to explain it to everyone is I try to use an analogy of what we are all used to, right? So I often use the analogy of a baby. So how does a baby learn, right? And you see an image here of a mother teaching a baby about, how to identify different, in this case, animals, right? It says, here's a cat, right? And it tries to spell out CAT, cat, or if it's in Konkani Amchi, they might say Manzar, Sune, right? And that's how we all have learned. But we also have learned not just by that, our brain is extremely efficient. So once the mother shows a picture of a cat or a picture of a dog, she doesn't have to show you 1,000 pictures for you to for the baby, or when you were called a baby, for you to figure out that, all right, I get it. This is what a dog should be, right? So when you see a dog on the street, even if you see a limp dog, a dog maybe with just three legs, right? You still know it's a dog, right? You don't need to be a rocket scientist to figure out it's a dog. And I say all this because in many ways, AI is that, but think of it as a much more inefficient. Okay. So AI is also nothing but a machine which is trying to learn by looking at patterns of data. The one difference is AI is probably 1,000 times more inefficient than us. And as a result, while a baby can see a few pictures of a cat and gets it that this is a cat, AI will probably need to show it 1,000 pictures of cat, okay, and all kinds of cats. And actually, we'll go through that exercise very soon. But that is in a nutshell what is artificial intelligence. It's basically saying, hey, computer, I know you know nothing about the real world, but here's what we will do. We will show you, millions and millions of, you know, pictures or text or video, whatever it is of the real world, and we'll kind of get you to memorize the good thing about AI, a computer, is it's very good at, unlike us humans, it is very good at memorizing, and it never gets tired, right? The fact that data centers world over are now going to be the biggest consumers of energy is for a reason. It never gets tired because we will keep supplying this AI with more and more energy, more and more storage, so it can have an infinite memory, and it will never get tired. You can keep feeding it data, and that's essentially what all these big companies like Google, Microsoft, OpenAI are doing. Okay, they are just feeding it pretty much all the information in the world and saying that, look, computer, you don't understand anything, right? You're not as sophisticated as a human brain, but what you are good at is storing a lot of information and just memorizing, and that's just rote learning would be another word for it. Okay, so this is what AI in a nutshell would be. Uh, Here's a further example where I'll try to give an example of how something like Chat GPT, many of you are familiar with it, right? If you're not, we'll go through some exercises of that as well. Or, Chat GPT or Gemini, these are all tools that many of you are now getting used to, are getting familiar with. Let's talk a little bit about how that AI works. That AI also has a name, which some of you may have heard. The name that it has is a large language model, LLM, large language model. And that name is for a reason, because as this picture will indicate, what did companies like ChatGPT do? They said that, hey, look, wait a minute. I just realized that we now have this our computers have become so fast, and have been able to get so much, can store so much information. What if we just do something very simple? Let's just feed it just about every single information on the internet. So all those books, 100 books, 1,000 books, 1,000,000 books, 1 billion books, right? There's no limit. Let's just feed every single thing, trillions of data points, right? The entire internet, if you will, to this gigantic, for lack of a better word, brain, right? And what this AI computer, this AI brain does is it takes all that information. It doesn't know anything about these books. What it knows is I'm going to take all of it, and every single word that I get, I'm going to convert it into a unique number. Okay? It's called embedding. It's a very technical thing. Don't worry about it. What we need to know is that what AI is doing, what these large language models are doing, is just taking in all the information that's there on the internet and organizing all of that into numbers, because computers only understand numbers. They don't understand English. They don't understand Amchi Gile. They don't understand some image that you show. All they understand is whatever you give me, I'm just going to put it into a something called some unique number. Okay. But so what? Why is that a big deal? Well, we tell AI one more thing. Remember how we had taught a baby how to recognize patterns? And that's where what you will hear is a transformer model, an AI model, does its magic. What it does is it says, all right, you got all these, we fed you the whole internet's information, right? But it's not just random. Yes, King was got a number 1024, fine. Queen got some number 1025 or something, right? France, the word France got a number 2049, right? All kinds of random numbers. But they are not completely random. They're kind of, you'll start seeing connections and patterns between numbers, right? For example, a king, you will find that there are a lot of sentences on the internet where a king also comes with another word called queen. You don't know anything about what is king and what is a queen, but what you do know is that somehow they are all connected. You don't know anything about the word Paris, you don't know anything about the word London, but what you do know is that somehow they seem to have some connection. They keep coming together in many, many sentences, right? And that's the hard part. That's the part where AI is doing its magic. It's just day over day, night over night, every second, it's just continuously trying to find patterns between these trillions of numbers that are now getting stored in the AI. Okay. So I hope you're all with me so far and following what's happening now. And why is that a big deal? Well, that's a big deal because let's take Google, right? When I type something as innocuous as you all can see my screen, right? I just shifted to another tab. Okay. When I type something as innocuous as the capital of, let's say, France, FR, right? And you'll notice even before I complete my sentence, it's saying, well, are you talking about the capital of France? And by the way, if that's what you're going to be talking about, the capital of France is Paris. And wait a minute, how did AI become so smart? How did it know that? First of all, how did it know what I'm typing? Right? Secondly, how did it even know that whatever that if I'm talking capital of France, the answer is Paris? Well, and that is where back to what you were discussing here, right? This idea of large language models. What its job is to figure out those connections between words. So what essentially is happening is in that fraction of a second, when I type the capital of France is AI, as we just discussed, these computers are super fast now, extremely fast. So what they're doing is they're going through hundreds of possible words. They're saying, is the capital of France a word called London? Maybe, but it's, I only see 5% probability that London is somehow connected to France. Could it be Berlin? Well, actually, I just see 2% probability. How about just a random word like a croissant? The capital of France is a croissant. Well, I just see a 1% probability of that happening. But then I see this random word called Paris, right? I see this random word. I see this word called Paris, which has some number. I don't know this number called 2050, whatever. But what I do know is somehow it has a very strong linkage to this word called France, which has the number 2049, right? And if that's the case, you know what? I'm going to take my chances and I'm going to complete the sentence by saying the capital of France is Paris, right? And that's how it types it up. And we look at that, right? We look at these AI tools, right? We look at these tools like Chat GPT, at these tools called chatgpt.com, right? And I say, what is the capital of France, right? And what does it do? It says the capital of France is Paris. In a fraction of a second, it completes that sentence. In fact, I stopped. I say, all right, tell me write an essay, write an essay about Paris and France, right? And just like that, you see line after line getting completed, sentence after sentence, word after word, just coming, going on and on and on. And when you look at this, we say, wow, wait a minute, AI is amazing. It's so smart. How is it managing? How can one possibly write an entire essay like that, word to word, in such an amazing manner? Well, now you know. Now we know how it works, right? Because what it's nothing more than this gigantic machine that has memorized, trillions and trillions of words as they were arranged on the internet, which by the way, each of us had contributed to the internet, right? And it's just looking for patterns. And it's saying, well, somehow the word France and Paris are there. So I'll write the first line, capital of France is Paris. Then I'm seeing somehow there's this word Eiffel Tower coming there. How about I'll write the second line, and in Paris there is the world famous Eiffel Tower. Somehow this other word called Macron is coming there. So I'll write this other word, the president is Macron, right? And so on and so forth, right? And just like that, it completes an entire essay. You're all with me? And that's essentially, we think, wow, this is amazing. AI has been able to complete an entire story. The reality is, yes, it's amazing. The technology is amazing. But what I want you all to appreciate is how under the hood it's working. Okay. It's nothing more than an amazing, for those of you who look at statistics or probability, it's an amazing probability machine that is, is trying to find the most probable output. Okay. So, and this is important for you all to know, because in one of the few slides after this, we'll also talk about, all right, so can AI ever be wrong? Okay. And I'd love for you all, as we talk about this, to think about that one question. Okay, that if this is how AI works, could AI possibly be wrong? And if so, why? Right? And the answer lies in exactly the same mechanism, which is it's a probabilistic machine. Okay. Probability means that there's a chance it will be right, a good chance it will be right. But probability also means that every now and then there's also a good chance it could be wrong. In fact, if you can try that experiment. You could try that part where where we said the capital, or what is the capital of France, right? We asked ChatGPT. If you try to ask it 1,000 times, well, no, tell me what is the capital of France. Tell me exactly what's the capital of France. Eventually, you will find it at some point it's going to say, well, the capital of France is London, or the capital of France is Hubli, right? Something random. And you're going to say, where did that come from? Right? Well, it's all nothing more than simple math, the idea of probability. Okay. So I hope you're all with me so far. And by the way, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. All right. Um, on the same note, let's take another example of how AI works. And you all can try this, by the way, okay? There's a wonderful tool provided by Google to help all of us. Actually, they started using it to help even high schoolers understand how AI works. And it was called Teachable Machines. Teach how you can teach a machine to understand AI. So it's teachablemachine.withgoogle.com. We will share all these links with you later on, so don't worry about it. But if you go here, you kind of can start seeing how AI works. So to be more specific, here's an example, right? Remember that example I showed you of how, oops, what happened here? Yeah, an example here of how a mother teaches a child what is a cat and what is a dog, right? By showing them examples. Well, with teachable machines, you can try that out and imagine AI being a baby. Okay? Imagine AI now being your baby. All right? And you can say, all right, I'm going to, in this case, I said, all right, here's a cat, here's a dog. And I uploaded, I think this case, about 10 pictures of a cat. Okay. You see, I uploaded a few pictures of a cat here. I did uploaded a few pictures of a dog or different kinds of dogs. Okay. And then there's this thing called training. Okay. Where I tell AI, all right, now AI, do your magic, right? Do your magic like what we did here. Do your magic of taking those images, converting them into numbers, find the patterns between the numbers. Okay, what do I mean by that? So it's going to look at a cat. It's going to say, well, a cat is nothing but an image of what you call as pixels, right? And in that there seems to have whiskers. The cat seems to have these ears that are pointed up. It seems to have some kind of a furry face. But a dog seems to be kind of different, and it'll try to, you know, assign numbers to all these features. All right. And then we say, all right, you do your job now. You train yourself. Try to understand these patterns, understand these linkages between these numbers. All right. And once it does that, it says, all right, fine, I got trained. Now let's see how it works. So let me import some images of some cat here. Like, let's say about cat, right? I'm importing some images of a cat. And my goal is, let's say I import about 10 images of a cat. All right. And then you all can see my screen, right? What I'm doing. And then let me try to upload images of a dog. Okay. And I'll say dog, dog, dog. All right. And there's a hyena here. I'll keep this for later. I'll try to see if it can recognize. I'm going to train it on all images of a dog. Okay. I'm going to say all these are what we humans would call as a dog, dog. All right. And all these are what we humans would call as a cat, cat. And then I'm going to say, all right, AI, now train yourself. Try to find those patterns between these images, right? And AI does that. I say, okay, good job. Looks like Google has a pretty fast server. It's able to fast computer. It's able to train itself fast. All right. Now I'm going to ask you to let's put it to test. We say, all right. Let's do an easy one first. Let's take an image of a cat which I had not supplied. This cat here. I will give it this cat, and I will see whether AI is able to figure it out. And not bad, it's able to do a good job. It says, look, this cat with 100% probability is a CAT cat. I don't know what cat means, by the way, but I do know it looks like a CAT. All right. And this other thing, this DOG, there's a 0% probability. Not bad. Good job. Let's try something else. Let's make it a little bit harder now. Okay. Let's try to see if we can give it a picture of a hyena. Okay. I took a picture of a hyena. Hyena, I would probably put it more like a dog, right? But let's see what AI does. All right. Well, not bad. It's kind of, even with just 10 pictures of a dog, it's become pretty intelligent at recognizing this is more like a dog. It's saying there's a 100% probability of it being a dog. Not bad. Let's try to do something more. Let's try to trick it a little bit. All right. Let's pick the picture of a bird now. All right. Now, a bird is neither a cat nor a dog. Okay. Now, if you were to ask a baby, what do you think a baby would say? Back to a baby. Here, let me just cancel it for a minute. For a baby, who a mother is training, a human brain is really smart, right? Really efficient. The baby is shown a cat, it's shown a dog. The baby may have never seen a bird in its life. But when you show it a bird, it may not know it's a bird, right? It may, and if it's Amchi, it will not say the Pakshi Asar, but it will say that this is neither a cat nor a dog. It has that level of intelligence, right? Let's see what AI does here. Let's go to my AI and I'll say, hey AI, all right, you think you're smart, right? How about this? What is this thing? What is this image of? Is it a cat, dog? What do you think? And AI, for some reason, says there's a 1% chance it's a cat, there's a 99% chance it's a dog. Now that's stupid, right? So this is a good example of how it tells us a few things. It tells us that AI is not as efficient as a human. It doesn't try to, think for itself. The second thing this tells us is that AI is as good as the data it is trained on, right? It was trained on 10 images of a cat, and that's all it knew about this world. It was trained on 10 images of a dog, and that's all it knew. So now everything you show it, I can bet you if I put a picture of me, we should probably try. It'll be funny. It'll probably try to say, this picture of this whatever this thing is. I don't know what it is, but it's probably so many percent dog and so much percent cat, right? Which sounds stupid, but that is AI for you. All right. So I want you all to appreciate what AI means or how AI works. Okay. Any questions so far? No? All right. If there are no questions, I'll just keep moving forward. But please, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Okay, it's really important that you all get an intuition for how AI works. With that, let me now jump to can you spot the AI in your everyday life? Okay, how is AI being used in everyday life? And everyone can hear me clearly, right? I'm not able to get that feedback, so I just want to make sure everybody can hear me all right.
Yes, it's very clear, and we're seeing your presentations as well. Thank you.
Awesome. So now AI is everywhere. All right. I gave you a simple example of how AI works,
Hi,
but
Milind.
yes,
I have a question.
yeah.
I don't know much about AI, so bear with me if it is very basic. When you are training the model, let's say you're just showing us with only two objects that we trained the model that you just showed us.
Correct.
As you go, the numbers, hundreds and thousands and so on, is the answer going to come up with always an absolute in the sense, is there where it goes into hybrid answer? I'm just making it up, part cat and part dog.
It will. So here's a good example, right? As you can see on the screen, a picture of a bird. First of all, it's never absolute. Here AI is saying that, look, I don't know what this is, but I can tell you, I broke it down into pixels. I put it into that numbers that I talked about, what they call as embeddings. And then I tried to look for relations. And what I can tell you is, since you only given me these two options, I think it's a 2% or a 12%. I think it's a cat. And with the 88% probability, I think it's a dog. Now, however, AI has one other attribute to it, which is it is required, in fact, the way AI works, it's required to give some output, right? So in this case, if you ask it what is it, it's going to say it's a dog because it's asked to say something. I guess you could ask it to, in fact, change the output and just give you its entire probability, right? In other words, you could have a chat GPT there where you could say, the capital of France is, and you could say, don't give me, just give me your raw output, of the probabilities. And sure enough, it will show you this amazing table. It will say, all right, 99% probability the word Paris, 5% London, 2% Delhi, 1% Hubli, 1% Shirali, 0.1% Shirali, 0.5% Mumbai, and so on and so forth, right? Because that's essentially what it is. It's just a big probabilistic machine. But I think mostly for us human consumption, we would go crazy just looking at that long table, right? We would say, what is all this nonsense? So to make it easy for us, they have, it just gives a nice English sentence, right? It says the capital of France is Paris, and we like to see that. The reality is a lot of probabilistic numbers behind this simple statement, the capital of France is Paris. Makes sense? Yeah?
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. Yeah, it's for the math geeks amongst us, it's a very fascinating science because it kind of tries to blend in probability with how humans like to interpret the world,
Well,
so that's what AI is
question
trying
was
to do.
the reason I
Uh-huh.
asked this question was that a baby looking at a hyena might say, "Oh, this looks part like dog, part like
Hmm.
cat."
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
If the
And that's
probabilities are 50-50, not the lopsided ones, but if it is closer to,
yes.
then would the AI also say, hey, this is something a hybrid? I'm not
Yes,
sure.
no, it's a very, very good observation you brought up, and this goes into a little bit, probably it's a topic for another day. In fact, it's also called the field is called explainable AI, because that baby, the example you gave, when it looks at a hyena, what does it do? It tells its mother, I don't know what this is, but it tries to reason things out. It says, because the mother might actually say, well, that's fine, what do you think it is, right? We all do that with our children because we want them to learn the art of independent thinking. And what does the baby say? The baby says, well, it does have that furry thing, so it looks like a cat, but at the same time it has this longer snout, like, which is more resembling a dog. And at the same time, this feature, and it reasons things out. I don't know what answer it will say. It might say it's a cat for all you know, but whatever it is, we humans have the ability to reason things out. AI is not, that is not the case. It's a very different reason. We can get into why that is not the case. It's more of, it's very hard to break down how AI has come to a certain number. Like, if you ask me, why is it that this AI is saying 12% probability? It'll be very hard to explain that. So this whole world of field of explainable AI is one where several universities are doing, PhD level research on trying to see if we can understand how AI came up with that number, right? But without, that is a discussion for another day, but it's a very good observation as we think about what are the differences between humans and AI. And knowing this can also help with other things. We'll get into, hopefully very soon, this topic of how to beat AI, right? How AI is being misused, and therefore what can we do about it? And that's where these elements of, we have the ability to reason things out becomes crucial. Okay. Um, can you spot the AI in your everyday life? So AI is everywhere. I put a few examples, right? Everyone, this screen seems very familiar, I'm sure, to most of you, right? Email spam. You know how most of us probably use Gmail, probably Outlook, right? And it thanks to that spam, whatever it is, we are saved from all those political messages, all those, buy some medicine from me, or I'm the prince from Nigeria, who's looking to make you rich, and just send, here's my account number, just send me some money, or whatever that is, right? That is spam, right? And that AI is doing it for us. And how does it do it? Does anyone want to take a guess? How does spam work? You can write it down. I'm not able to see it here, but feel free to write down your answers as well. But in short, how AI is working is the same principle of the cat and dog model, right? Just like how the mother taught the baby what's a cat and a dog, or how we just try to attempt to do that by teaching AI, with just a few pictures of a cat and a dog. Google, Gmail is saying, all right, look, enough of this spam stuff. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to feed my Google AI with a few thousand possible spam messages. And I'm going to feed a few thousand good messages. So spam and not spam. Cat and dog, right? So spam and not spam. And now AI, do your thing. Try to figure out which is a spam and not spam. So next time there's an email that comes to your inbox, remember what is happening. It's actually going through the spam filter. It's looking at it. It's saying, well, I think it's a 12% chance it's spam, and it's a 88% chance it's not a spam. And therefore, Google makes a call and says, all right, fine. We send it to your inbox. And sometimes when it sees the word Nigeria in it, or when it sees the word send me money please, I urgent, with a capital URGENT, urgent, you guys know those, right? It says, well, this looks more like a, 91% chance it's a spam and a 9% chance it's a not spam. All right, put it into the spam bucket, which is also why AI can also remember it's a probabilistic machine. It can also get it wrong. So when you get thousands of emails, you remember, you guys recollect that time when somebody says, I sent you that email. Didn't you get it? And you said, no, I didn't get it. I see it. I can't see it in my inbox. And then they say, well, can you please check your spam folder? And sure enough, that email is in the spam folder, right? And you are very intrigued. What is this doing? Why is it in my spam folder? Right? Why is that email coming from some mom or pachi sitting with emails from the prince of Nigeria and somebody else? Right? Well, that's because AI is not deterministic. It's not perfect. It is nothing more than a probabilistic machine. It makes mistakes just like just like probability, right? It's just a chance. Often the probability works out in your favor. There are times when it does not. All right. But a great example of how in our everyday life we see AI in action. Um, Another example, Netflix, right? Netflix is amazing. The stock is doing very well. And one of the reasons is because of the AI it's putting to use, right? If all of you have probably had that Netflix moment, you open up Netflix, you are probably going there to watch some other movie, right? And then you start watching a certain movie and then you start scrolling through it. And before you know it, you finished watching that entire movie. And you wonder, how did that happen? Right? Well, that's AI at work. What AI has been doing behind the scenes is saying, here's a person, they probably know your profile by now, whether you like it or not. Here's a person who's in his 40s who has two kids. And in the past, he has watched these movies. And by the way, not him, but his wife has watched these other movies, right? And somebody with that profile, with that, who is very similar, who's watched those kinds of movies, has also ended up liking these other movies, has also given a thumbs up. Remember in Netflix, you can give a thumbs up or thumbs down, has given a thumbs up for these movies. So, you know what we'll do? We will get Milind, if Milind goes to Netflix next time, we are going to show him only these movies, right? And I fall for it every single time, right? Because that's how, it's not because AI somehow is this amazing psychologist who knows me very well. It's mainly because it's just a matter of probability and just doing the numbers. It just crunches through millions and millions of its users. It tries to bucket me into which among those millions of users am I the closest to. Again, just based on those patterns, right? Those linking me. I'm just a number on Netflix for all you know. And by the way, so are all of you. All right. So here. I am just for Netflix. I am one of these numbers here. What it does though is says this number called Milind is very close to this other number called I don't know, Vasudev or Kiran Mom or somebody, right? And by the way, because of whatever back to because of why nobody can explain. It's just done the numbers. It just finds that there's some closeness there, and based on that, it says, all right, fine. I'm going to put Milind in a certain category, and a Milind is going to see a certain set of movies. In fact, I'm also going to say, because you watched a certain movie, it doesn't tell me, it doesn't complete this sentence, by the way. It also says, because you watched a certain movie, and by the way, because you know everything about you, which even you might not know, I'm going to show you all these other movies too. Right? And while we love that experience, it's also scary if you think about it, right? Because they seem to know so much more, and therefore potentially, we'll talk about the misuse of AI, potentially manipulate us just because of the sheer amount of data it collects about each of us. All right. Again, a good example of AI in our everyday life. Another example of AI in our everyday life, we all use WhatsApp, right? Increasingly here, let me use this. On WhatsApp these days, you have this thing called Meta AI. Meta is the company now, Facebook, that owns WhatsApp. Let's say I say at Meta AI. This is my family group. All right, if you can see the screen. Let's say I say, all right, write. You know how motivational. I'm sure my kids will hate me for that, but I'll say write a motivational, good morning message for my boys. All right. And AI will do that. It'll say, "Hey, champ." So maybe I should delete it before they see it because they're going to roll up their eyes and say, Dad is at it again." But a good example of how, whether it is WhatsApp or whether it is, another example is, if you're using Gmail, even in Gmail, you have this AI now. You have this thing, if you look up here, called Ask Gemini, where you can say, "Hey, tell me what are the important messages today," right? And if I do that, AI will scan through all my email, and it will also try to look for patterns on, what are the what are, and it'll say, in fact, it does say that, look, an important message is your upcoming meeting on AI for living that you're supposed to give a talk about, right? It'll also say I need to take action on certain things. I guess I need to renew my Netflix license, right? And so on and so forth. So, how is AI doing it? Well, we think it's amazing, we think it's smart, but what I want you all to appreciate is how it's working under the hood. It is still an amazing technology, but knowing how it works will help you appreciate two things. One, why it works the way it does, but also why it does not give you certain data that you would have wished to see, right? Because you'll be now able to better explain why, right? Like the example we just saw, where you'll say, now I understand why it's calling a bird as, 12% cat and a 88% dog. Okay. We now know why it works that way. All right. Another great example of AI in our everyday life, and thank God for that. What is happening is, we'll talk about the misuse of AI. Increasingly, this AI is being used to try and scam us. All right. We will show some examples of it. But thank God for that, for some AI. What banks are doing is they are trying to use AI to prevent, just like how spam, not spam. They are trying to look for, if there's some fraudulent transaction happening. You must have seen this. You might have got an alert in your email from your bank. And how is it doing that? Right? Well, here it's again the same concept, cat and dog, or spam and not spam. What AI is doing here is looking at your thousands of your transactions, right? So if you are, let's say, staying in Pennsylvania, US, and doing, hundreds of transactions every year with your credit card or with your bank, your bank is seeing those transactions come in. And if it suddenly sees a transaction from Bangladesh, right? A person who just today morning did a transaction for a coffee from Wawa's from Ivy Land, Pennsylvania, and in the next hour is making $1,000 transaction from Bangladesh. Clearly, that's where AI will say, "Wait a minute, cat, dog," right? That pattern of, is this a cat, is it or spam or not spam? You will say, "Wait, this is a typical email, a typical transaction, and this seems to be like a fraudulent transaction," right? It's finding the non-typical patterns in the data, right? And that's also AI, and it's a good use of AI, right? To find these kind of anomalies in the data, and that's how this AI works. All right. Again, a good example of how AI is being used, whether you like it or not, in your everyday life. Um, I would like to, how are we doing on time? So, just in the interest of time, what I'll do is I will try to jump to a little bit of hands-on exercise now. But I would like you all to start thinking about how, just observe the world around you, observe every single task since you did in the morning, and try to think, is AI already being used in some shape or form, whether it was that WhatsApp message or whether it was my email that I did, or in fact, increasingly also on the phone, a phone call that I made, or when I made a credit card transaction. Is AI being used somehow? And if AI is not being used, would somebody come up with some AI application there? Because what is happening is every single person, every task out there is being, for lack of a better word, AI-fied. Okay, everything where possible, people are trying to automate it with AI. That's again a topic for another day on what does that mean for each of us, right? Often I get questions, as I train high school kids on what does it mean for what college major I should apply for, or if it's somebody who's graduating looking for a job, what kind of field I should take my first job in, or even for many of us who might be in mid-career professionals, what should I think about for my own career? What we do know is AI is changing every single task or job that we do today. It will look very, very different, not even more than 5 years from now. All right. So, what I would encourage everyone to do is just think about everything you're doing on a daily basis and start thinking in your mind. And now that I kind of know how AI works, what can it do to these everyday tasks that I do, especially a task that I do which are repetitive. If there's a repetitive task that I do every single day, those are the ones that AI is first going after, that people are trying to use AI to automate it. All right. All right, but without much ado, let's jump to the next topic, which is yeah, prompt engineering, or how can I start using this AI? All right, and here let me give the example of accounting. So this is a picture from I think 1970. I think in the US, these were accountants. Okay, there would be these huge accounting offices, and these were highly prized careers back then. Why? Because they would bring in people who were very good at math, mathematicians, not necessarily the mathematicians as we know them today, but these would be people who would be very good at doing numbers in their head. All right. And because this was before, calculators were just coming out. Computers hadn't yet kind of become, definitely hadn't become something that you and I would use. All right. And you can see how people have long ledgers of books. They would do a lot of bookkeeping, keeping track of numbers from one page to another and so forth. And these people were highly priced, for that skill. Look at that same accountant today, those 10 or so accountants that you see here on the screen. Today that job is being done by one person, one accountant. He's much more productive, but that's not it. What his job is very different from the job these people would do. These people were prized for their ability to do the numbers in their head, to track and balance, sheets across different pages, right? Today, this person is not required to do that. He may not be very good at doing mental math, but that's okay. That's not what we are prizing people for, what we value people for. What this person is doing is, he's getting good at using technology. So in this case, he's using this tool called Excel. Some of you may be familiar with it, right? Where we put in numbers, we ask it to put together some chart. We ask the AI in there to forecast what it could look like, what the numbers can look like, and so on. So he or she is good at using AI, but he or she is also good at something else, which is knowing what are the right questions to ask. Okay. So answers you will get from AI today. But that's not the hard part. The hard part is understanding what is the problem the company needs you to solve, right? What is the end output that you need to put together for whom, right? Maybe for your boss or for your customer or whatever that is. And therefore, what commands do I need to give? What prompts do I need to give to the AI to generate that output, right? And also that skill of when you see that output, having that intuition for does this look right? Does this make sense? Does it pass the sniff test? Because remember, AI is a probabilistic machine. It will just give you a number which may very likely be right, but there's also a chance, maybe a slim chance, but a chance nevertheless, that it will be wrong. All right. And that is where the skill of the future will be this person, as opposed to a person like this, not somebody who necessarily it's great if you are good at math. What is even greater is if you are good at understanding the problem, understanding asking the right questions, knowing what's the output we need to give and for whom and for what purpose, and then getting the AI to use. Speaking of putting the AI to use, let's try a very simple example. All right. Let's take an example that we all do. Let's say, today evening I need to cook dinner. All right. So here, And by the way, I'll share this list. You can go to chatgpt.com, or you can go to, perplexity.ai, or you can go to this thing called, Elon Musk has this thing called grok.com. Or you can go to Google. Google has their very own, Gemini.com, right? So let's say I go to, Gemini. Okay, I like to use. I used to work at Google, so I like to use Gemini, right? So let's say I say, uh, uh, help me make dinner for tonight, right? So this is an example of a prompt. I'm putting AI to use, right? And AI will just do as good as whatever sorry, let me, it's in this mode where it let's just try to get it into fast mode. Just help me make dinner for tonight, right? And AI will now it'll give you it gives me some answer. It says that, all right, it actually asks me some questions, all right. And I realized very quickly that, look, I should have given it a better prompt. It says, so how much time do you have? What is the ingredient you want to use? The cuisine style, right? And then it says, all right, look, if you have less than 30 minutes, here's an example, shrimp scampi, bean skillet fried rice, and black bean tostadas, and so on. Now, this is good, but there's a better way. If you really want to put AI to use, there's a better way to write these prompts. All right. What I would do is here, and I'm trying to use this example, a simple example of cooking a meal, to tell you how you all can also can and should and probably are using AI, but learn to give it the right prompt. Okay, just like this person here, learn to use, learn to know what is the problem you are trying to solve here, learn to understand what is the output that we want and for whom, right? And therefore know how to how to ask AI to do a certain task. All right, in other words, prompt engineering. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I always start with giving some background, right? So let's say, well, thankfully I am not, but let's just say, I say, I am, or let's say, let's be more specific. I am cooking a meal for a diabetic person, right? So I give some background, and this is important. I also want to ensure let's say that person also cannot take much of sodium. Ensure the meal is low on sodium, right? So I give some background like that, okay? The person prefers Indian cuisine, right? Cuisine. Cuisine. Or maybe let's make it even more. Amchigele cuisine. How about that, right? Konkani cuisine. I think it would know what is Amchigele, but just for good measure, I say Konkani cuisine or Saraswat. But so I give some background. The second I say, you need to tell it what to do. I need a step-by-step plan for, or rather recipe for cooking a meal, right? So I need to tell it exactly what's the output I need. I give it a background. I tell it what's the task I want you to do. This is all to the AI. I also give it some constraints. I say that, I need, I don't have, I don't have more than 30 minutes to cook this meal. What are the constraints I have? I go to my fridge and I check and I say, I have chicken. I have, what else do I have in my fridge? Let's say I have tomatoes, and let's say I have some spinach, right? I'm just making this up, all right? I have chicken, tomato, and spinach in my fridge, okay? I also have some Indian spices. And what else do I have? Oh, I forgot. I have this wonderful thing called an Instapot. I have an Instapot. Okay. And then and I say, give me the output. Uh, write the recipe step by step so I can understand easily. Okay. Maybe I'll also add here that, I am not a proficient cook, just for good measure, because I don't want it to give me some Michelin star meal, right? And I ask it to do it. And now that I've given it, in fact, even AI said this is a very wonderful and specific request, right? So now you see how I don't know what it's saying, that I'll help you make a ghashi or rasa. But so apparently there's a meal called a Saratpur style chicken and spinach curry, right? Which is also apparently diabetic friendly and low sodium. And it gives me the step-by-step approach, right? It says, all right, here's what you need to do. You need to do this for 5 minutes, and you need to do this and this and this and so on. And it's very clear what I need to do now, right? So you see the difference, the night and day difference between the first prompt where it said, all right, you want it, here's what you get. This and 30 minutes, do this, do this, do this, right? It's not very helpful. But now, because I was much more specific, because I told it what's the background, I told it what I needed to do. I gave it my constraints. I also was very clear what's the output I want. It was able to do a far better job, right? And solve the problem for me, right? And that's the skill we need to build. And that's no different from the skill that, this accountant is now learning to build around how to use AI. Even he too is learning that one skill of being able to ask the right questions, know what the output is for whom, and therefore learning how to give the right prompt to the AI. Whether it's an accountant, whether it's a lawyer, lawyers, by the way, we train a lot of lawyers, all right, at Great Learning, that's what I do. We train them on how to now move away from spending a lot of time writing those, those legal agreements, to instead understand who is your client, understand what are the precedents, the law precedents that they need to take into account, understand the background, the context of that company's case, and then give the right prompt to the AI to draft that entire legal agreement, right? So where a lawyer is to spend hours and hours writing these, legally speech documents, now they spend time understanding what's the problem to be solved. Just like how now we are going to spend time understanding what's the problem to be solved instead of trying to figure out, exactly write down all these recipes, right? Uh, uh, right. So in short, a good prompt is about understanding the task. Let me just increase my screen here. What's the task you have to do? Telling the AI what's the task it has to do, giving it the background, being specific about the constraints, right? Like I want low sodium options. I only have chicken and tomatoes and spinach in my fridge, right? It must be under 500 words, right? Being very specific of the constraint, and then being super clear to the AI, what is the output I want you to show me, right? So these are the key elements. These four things are the key elements to what makes for a good prompt, what makes for a good way to command the AI to do your bidding. Okay. So I'm hoping we'll share these slides, but I'm hoping you all start practicing how to write good prompts to get the AI, whether it's Chat GPT or Gemini or Perplexity, you just name your favorite AI, right? To get it to give you the output you need for the everyday task that you do. All right. Um, Everybody with me? Um, so I see some questions. All right. If you so yeah, no questions so far. But I put this picture here to tell, a common question that comes up, and thought I might as well bring it up here, but we can discuss more around it, which is, so therefore, if this is cool, right? It's so cool to see that, from a life like this, we are now moving to a life like this, right? So what does that mean for me, right? So therefore, what skill do I need to learn so that I can move from something like this to something like this? All right. And my answer to that is, imagine that now, not too distant, by the way, in the future, each of us can have, this AI, in fact, a robotic AI, who's there, just like how each of us have our phone, right? Today, if I have any question, I can't imagine my life without a phone in my pocket, right? I take it with me wherever I go. Imagine if you had an AI, either like a bot on your phone or even an actual robot like this, going with you wherever you go, right? Wouldn't that be amazing? And that actually will be a reality very soon, all right? The question though for you is, so therefore, where does that leave you? If this can do a lot of the things that you're doing, whether it's at work or at home, what is the task, what is the job, what is the skill that you need to work on? And the answer is simple. It's the exact thing that we just went over. And it's the exact skill that we talked about, what this individual here is trying to get good at, which is being able to understand what's the problem we need to solve, whether it's at work or at home. And, then it's trying to, think of the strategy here on, therefore, what kind of output I need to get, who will consume that end result of whatever I do, right? And then knowing how to give the right prompt, the right instruction to this AI, to this robot, or to this, that chatbot that I just showed you, right? The right instruction, or what is also called as the right prompt, that skill will be very, very crucial for all of us. All right. Do we have any questions? All right. So let's keep going. So now that we know, so now that we know about, so far, what have we done so far? We tried to understand how AI works. We tried to understand,
Yeah.
how AI can be used for our everyday living, everyday jobs,
Yes.
right? And we also try to understand how to write good prompts, all right? How to give the right instructions, good instructions to AI so they can do our bidding, all right? We'll now move to the final section of this, and also because I think we are over the hour, so I'm hoping you all can just bear with me. We'll try to cover the final section in probably 10 minutes, and we'll open it up for questions, okay? Uh, and there's a question here around on what jobs can AI not do? All right, that's a very good one, good question. Let's just go over when can AI be wrong? When does AI not work as we expect it to? And then I would like to ask you all that question. So think about that question. So what can AI not do? Because as of now, it seems so amazing, right? AI seems to be doing everything we want, and probably more things will come that that we aren't thinking about right now. For those in Pennsylvania, we just got an announcement that Wave, Waymo, the company that Google owns, which is doing self-driving cars. So if I want a taxi, it'll just come to my doorstep. I'll sit in it and I'll go wherever I want to, except there'll be one small difference. This taxi will not have a driver anymore. All right. So that is now coming to Philadelphia. It's already in the West Coast, it's in New York City, and very soon it'll be everywhere. Right. So just an example of the many, many ways AI is going to very quickly, right, faster than we can imagine, change the way things are going to work around us. So keep that question in mind, though, that therefore, what can AI not do, right? It also brings up another question, and therefore, what will be the need for humans, right? So I want you all to think about it, but let's go to where can AI be wrong? So here I'll give an example of um, let's try a simple example, all right? And let's see what happens here. So here, the simple example I often like to give is, let's go to, I don't know, let's pick, right, Gemini, and I'll say, show me an image, right? I'll say, show me an image of a person writing with his left hand. And by the way, this was the question that Prime Minister Modi asked everyone at an audience. It was a world seminar on AI. All the top presidents and prime ministers of all the countries were there, including top scientists. And he used this simple example. He started his speech with this one question. He said, AI has taken over and is doing amazing things. But it's in the smallest of things, the littlest of things, that AI surprisingly may not work as expected. Let's try to see why. All right. Show me an image of a person writing with his left hand. Now, AI does something pretty amazing. It does amazing images. I'll show you some examples of images which look very realistic. In fact, I'd like to challenge you all to tell me whether this is an image created by AI or not. But here you go. Here's an image of a person writing with his left hand. Do you think this person is writing with his left hand? Right? Clearly, he's not. He's using
No.
his right hand. And yet, we gave a very clear instruction to this AI. How could AI possibly get this wrong? Thoughts, anyone? Does anyone have an answer why AI is getting this wrong? Does anyone have a chat?
Mirror
Uh,
image?
Sorry, go ahead.
Is it something to do with mirror image?
No, it's not mirror image. It's AI takes care of that mirror image and so on. Good point though. But this is actually, it brings us to let's just go back to the basics. Right? Often, if you want to answer some question like this, let's go back to where did this come from, right? Remember this? We were learning about how does AI work. AI is nothing but you know as good as the data it is trained on. Cat, dog, spam, not spam, right? And the many other forms, data that we keep feeding it. Well, here's the interesting thing. In the world today, how many left-handed people, how many images are there of left-handed people on the internet? There are quite a few, but they are a fraction, a very tiny fraction compared to all the images that we see today of people. If I go here, if I, ask Google images of people writing, right? And I look at images, I see right hand, 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 right hand. Is there anyone out here, any image on the internet of somebody writing with his left hand? And at least here, none, right? Is there a, oh, there you go. Now I
I
found
think I
one.
saw
This
one.
person is writing with left hand, right? But you see where we are going with this? AI is just as good as the data it is trained on. And because all it sees here, imagine if you had 1,000 pictures of a cat, but hardly maybe one or two pictures of a dog. And then you gave it a picture of, say, a hyena, it would say, I think it's a cat. Why? Because I'm just going by what I've been trained on, right? And so is the case with asking a person, in this case AI. We thought AI, you'd be smarter than that, that you could just show me a picture of somebody doing writing with his left hand, and even that simple task it fails, right? It's to highlight. So even back then, Prime Minister Modi was highlighting a big point, in fact a crucial point, and maybe even a scary point for all of us, which is AI is trained on the data that we have supplied, which means AI is just as good as how we all collectively as a humanity think, which means AI is as has all the amazing things that we all the amazing literature, the Shakespeare works or the works by Canto or Plato and all of that is AI will be able to create amazing literature from that. But that same AI will also have all the biases and the prejudices, and for example, I might say, show me an image of a person. It will probably show very likely a white person, right? It will not show an Indian. It will not show a black person, right? It will definitely not show an indigenous person from America. Why? Because it's just as good as the data it's trained on. And most of the AI, unfortunately, and this is again a topic for another day, is being trained on US specific data, right? So it shows you a white American male. Nothing wrong with that, but we got to understand that AI is going to be as good as the biases we have. All right, and that's important. It's a topic for another day. This you might have heard, in fact, Prime Minister Modi talking about the need for, he uses the word AI sovereignty or data sovereignty, right? Which is we need to own the data that is being used to train the AI, right? Because if you go to AI today, if you go to Chat GPT and ask them, tell me something about Sanatan Dharma, it's going to give you an answer, but I don't think it's going to be what our matha or what most mathas in India would want people to understand about Sanatan Dharma, and that's a problem, right? Because each of us is getting trained to say, if you want to know an answer, just go and ask Chat GPT, Well, ChatGPT is going to give an answer just as good as it has been trained on. So I hope you all remember that. In fact, on that note, often example that I quote is, hallucination, right? AI, let's take a nice, since you're talking about cooking meals, right? Let's talk about, give me a recipe for amchi gele uh, hot dog, right? We all know hot dog, correct? I hope you all know what is hot dog because I love hot dog, right? So let's say I tell AI to give me a recipe of like hot dog. Now it turns out that there is enough hot dog. People have contributed recipes for hot dog, so it does give you some amazing recipe, right, for hot dog. Saraswat style hot dog. Apparently, is this right? It puts coconut and ginger, and I didn't know they put ginger and green chilies in hot dog. I thought that was not right. But anyway, looks like it does tell you about how to make hot dog. All right. But, well, that's fine. But now let's try to make it a little bit more interesting. Let's say I tell it, okay, tell me the recipe for, and I'll just make something up. I'll say the Koppikar khotta, right? Now there is no such thing as Koppikar khotta. Okay, I'm just completely making it up. But let's see what AI does. And AI decides to actually tell you what is a Koppikar khotta. There is no such thing. I was completely made up. But AI says, oh, that's a Koppikar khotta is a specialized and traditional name for the khotta. And it goes on to explain what is Koppikar khotta, right? And it actually gives a recipe for that, the full traditional Koppikar khotta recipe, which is all nonsense. It's completely made up. You and I know that. And yet, AI doesn't shy away from putting it together. Why? Right? Again, the answer lies in just going back to the basics, right? Saying, how did AI work? AI is simply saying, look, is there something called Koppikar or there's something called Koppikar here? Is there something called Khotta? There's something called Khotta. Is there some linkage? Kind of, maybe like a 0.2% linkage between a Koppikar and a Khotta. And it will say, and what else is linked to it? Oh, there's something called rice, there's something called coconut, there's something. So it just makes, that the capital of France is, it decides Paris. It says, Khoto is made with, it decide, no, Kopikar Khoto is made with, it will say, it'll just say, oh, I think coconut seems to be a very close word. It'll put coconut, it'll put rice. I don't know what else it puts. I should actually see what else. It'll be curious to know what they associate Kopikar with. But the point is that AI hallucinates, it makes stuff up. Why? Because now we know why, right? It's the way it works. It's all a probabilistic game here, right? And it uses that to put something together in the AI world. That what it just did is given a specific name. It's called AI hallucination. All right. So this is another example of how AI gets things wrong. Okay. Um, um, so I was just looking at some questions that may have come up. So let's keep going. I think we'll no more questions so far. So AI hallucination, right? And now the final thing is, so what are the risks and dangers of AI? I hope we can keep going on. Kiran ma'am, let me know, right, if I'm going about time. And just I have a couple more slides. So
Yes,
I
no, I
told,
think that's good. Yeah, if we can finish
okay.
it in the next few minutes, that'll be good. Thank you.
Okay, so next few minutes. All right, so let's make it in the next 5 minutes. So, you see, AI has, however, because of how AI has been trained on so much of data and just getting better and better, it's also being put to a lot of misuse. All right, what's the misuse? There was a news article about how Google has come up with this way to generate images. They gave it a weird name, Nano Banana. So Google's image creator is called Nano Banana. It's surprisingly very, very good, right? With that, I could make this guy who's a New Zealand cricket captain, or our president Donald Trump could be given an Aadhaar card and could be made a citizen of India, just like that. Just by a few good prompts on AI, you'll be able to manipulate and create all kinds of realistic looking things. All right. In fact, here's a fun exam question for all of you. There are two images here of Elon Musk. All right. One of them is a photo that was taken. One of them is an AI generated one. Can anyone feel free to use chat? How many of you think it's the one on the left, and how many of you think it's the one on the right that is AI generated? Which among these, the left or the right image, is the one generated by AI? One is a photo, one is generated by AI. Anyone?
The one on the left seems to be AI generated.
All right, we have one person for the one on the left. Anyone for one on the right? One person saying on chat that it's the person on the right who is AI generated. Anyone else?
Or maybe both of them
Somebody
are.
else is saying it's interesting. I think more women are saying it's the person on the right, and the guys seem to be thinking it's the person on the left. So I don't know if there's some bias there, but the answer is, as always, women are right. It's the person on the right who is AI generated. So the picture on the right is generated by AI. The picture on the left is generated is actually a real photo of Elon Musk. Okay, but the point I'm trying to make, in fact, let me see, given the interest, I'll show you some other fun examples. This, by the way, is a very interesting example. Remember that example I showed you of how your bank tells you whether if there's a fraudulent transaction just to protect you. AI is unfortunately being misused to actually to scam you with that. You will see emails like these, which will look very real, all right? And they'll say, "Oh, urgent, there's some fraud going on in your account, and here's what you need to do." I kind of try to highlight how to spot such issues. Maybe we'll keep that as a topic for another day on how to prevent yourself from succumbing to scams. But some things to keep track of are, this thing, right? That very likely this is a made up thing. There is no such bank. So look at who it's coming from, the email, all right? Look at, spelling mistakes like verify is verify. That's a stupid spelling mistake. But remember, AI is a probabilistic machine. So when it tries to generate things, there's a probability that something it will get wrong, right? Humans will, not do that, right? Well, humans make spelling mistake, but they usually have the judgment to then go and check. Well, they should check that they write everything correctly. The other thing AI will do, and something you need to know about scams. AI is being used to create a lot of scams, but the reason behind those scams, the motivation behind it, the person behind it is a human. And the motivation for it has never changed. That's a very single motivation for all scams is they want your money, right? So a simple way I tell people, if you're ever trying to figure out how to prevent scams, a simple trick for all of you to understand is if any communication comes to you, whether it's a phone call, which almost sounds like your son or daughter, whether it's an email that looks so realistic, or whether it's anything else, if it asks you for some money, get your antennas up. Try to ask yourself, wait a minute, if it's your phone call that sounds like it's coming from your son, hang up and call your son back and say, son, I'm just calling you back on your number. Did you really ask for money? Okay. So if it's because that, while AI will keep getting more and more sophisticated, that underlying human nature of why scams happen, which is the greed for money, is always going to be there forever, unfortunately, right? So that's a very easy trick to spot scams. If somebody is asking you for your money, you probably want to check it's probably AI generated often now. And unfortunately, much often now, the number of such email scams has apparently become 5x because of AI. And the number of people succumbing for it has also dramatically increased because AI has got so sophisticated. Right? If I ignore this email, AI learns and it says, okay, this Milind guy, he seems to be smart enough to ignore me. Let me try another trick and another trick. And AI, remember, AI never gets tired. It will try 1,000 tricks till eventually Milind will succumb to it. Right? So that's AI for you. And it's just getting more and more sophisticated. So I want you all to understand that with the good of AI is what is also coming is a world of the bad of AI. Here's another example. Remember, so here's a clip from the movie Avatar. Okay, you all can see this, right? It's a nice clip from the movie Avatar. The question for you all here is Avatar just announced the latest movie, right? You may have seen its trailers. This is the Avatar number 4. So which part is this from? Avatar 1, 2, 3, or 4? Can anyone tell me? Which version, which movie of Avatar is this scene from? Anyone?
Number two,
Want to take a guess?
number two.
Part number two,
Yeah.
anyone else? So anyway, given the interest of time, it's a trick question. The answer is none of the above. This is being actually created by me, and I created this avatar clip, and I could have created an entire movie of avatar, just sitting in my room in my pajamas, and just getting good at writing prompts, right? Point I'm trying to make is, AI has become so good that you and I can become entire movie directors if we wanted to, right? Here's another example. Tell me whether this is a real clip from a movie or an AI generated one. What do you guys think? Is this AI generated or was it a real clip from a movie?
AI.
Yeah,
Yeah, and why do you think so?
the faces were just too smooth. There were like no imperfections, and their faces just looked unreal.
Yep, good point. Faces, and there were other things there that if you were paying attention, the background figures, the way the coffee was steaming, there were things there which, if you put some more thought to it, we realize, wait a minute, that's not how real life works, right? So another good example, but the point here is AI has become very sophisticated, and it's just the beginning. It's going to get more and more amazing, which means with great power comes great benefits, but it also means comes great responsibility, right? AI can, and given our human nature, will be misused. It's a topic for another day that I had this around, and how can you prevent AI from taking advantage of you? How can you prevent succumbing to AI scams? Let's not discuss it today, but it suffices to know that AI will that you should know how AI at least intuitively works, and how it could benefit you, or it could also be put to misuse. All right, now we are out of time. So I did want to talk about some cool projects that we've been doing with AI. What I do want to encourage all of you, we'll close the session here, is to ask yourself, so we talked about how AI works. We talked about AI, for everyday tasks. We talked about this thing called prompt engineering, right? How to instruct AI to do things you want. We use the example of cooking a meal for all of us today, right? But then we also talked about with great power comes great responsibility, the dangers of AI, right? And how it can also get things wrong, how it can hallucinate, and how, unfortunately, it is also being misused by people to take advantage of us, right? So with now that you know all this, what I would urge all of you to, at the end of this session, just think for yourself is, what can you do with AI, right? AI, I'd love to talk about how we are using AI for some fun projects, some meaningful projects that can truly benefit the society. But maybe that's a topic for another day. But just keep thinking, A, about how is AI being used in everyday tasks that you do, and B, how you too can be part of this, not just a consumer of this amazing AI, but also somebody who's contributing to the world now that you have a tool, right? Which can everything from creating a movie, creating an amazing script for a story, creating some amazing recipe. There is no limit to what you can do sitting in your home with this AI. So please start thinking about what you can do with AI. Yeah. All right. With that, let me end this session, and I'll take it for any questions.
Right. In the chat, we had some that were interesting. Right. So, can AI do intuitive jump as humans do?
Yeah,
And
no, that's a,
yeah.
and that's intuitive, right? Or another word that we often hear. Good question, by the way. And this question often also comes a little bit from this, this question that even large, the stalwarts of AI, the who's who of AI, everyone from Elon Musk to Jan LeCun to, who's considered one of the fathers of this transformer model AI, or Andrew Ng, these are like the godfathers of AI, inventors of AI. They have this debate around, can AI, one question is, can AI be creative? Intuitive, can be also creative. Can AI have consciousness? right? Or there's a term that is used in AI, it's called AGI. AGI is also called general, general AI. So basically being able to think like us humans, right? Can you, in other words, can AI come to a point where it can never, it can, we'll never be able to tell whether this is a human or an AI? And there's a lot of debate on this. What I will tell you is that the reason there's a lot of debate is because we as humans also don't fully understand us humans. Okay. What I mean by that is when you use the word intuitive or when I use the word creative, that, oh, this person is creative. What does that even mean? Right? How do we define creativity? Right? The fact that somebody can solve a math problem, is that creative? Well, yeah, because he probably used some creativity to do it, but then so can AI. AI is just solving math problems because no. How about some, get them to solve JE problems? JE problems are much more harder, or math Olympiad problems. Well, there was a time when AI couldn't do it, but now AI is able to do it. So is AI not creative, right? So then what is creative? What is intuition? And we humans are also not aligned on what the definition is for that. There's a larger question on what is, a question that comes often now is, all right, okay, fine, maybe AI is creative, fine, right? But AI will never be conscious. Humans have so-called consciousness. But then that is fine. Maybe AI is not, conscious like a human. But then the question comes, so what is consciousness? And nobody has an agreement on it. At least in the Western world, people are not able to agree what is consciousness. Right? There's a lot of debate on that. So if we are not able to decide what is it that we want to measure, how can we ask whether AI will be able to do, is good at that or not? Right? So that's the fundamental question that people are trying to grapple with today. So hopefully that answers your question. Um, any
Right,
other
very
questions,
good
anyone?
response. Thank you, Milind. And there's a technical one, if you can be very brief. What's the difference between AI and AGI? Because I think it's very late in India. So,
Yeah, so it's AGI, the famous example that is often given is there's a famous computer scientist called Alan Turing. So there's a movie on Alan Turing, okay? He defined a so-called Turing machine. The idea of Turing machine is that imagine that, you don't know on the other side of a cardboard, somebody is sitting there. It can either be a machine or it can be a human, and you are going to ask it questions and it's going to give an answer. Okay, it will probably type out an answer. And AGI, his idea of the Turing machine or the Turing test was, if the human who's sitting on the other side of that cardboard, who cannot see what's on the other side, cannot tell whether that other side there's a machine sitting or a human, then it has passed the Turing test. That AI has passed the Turing test, and therefore it has AGI. It's able to think for itself, almost like how humans think, right? So that would be AGI. And so far, we are not attained AGI, okay, because people are still somehow able to trip the AI. Just like how today, just amongst us, right, we were able to figure out whether that video was fake or real, right? And at least the women in the group were able to figure out which image was fake or real, right? So in that sense, we are not yet at AGI, right? We can still kind of see how AI is getting it wrong, but AI is getting more and more sophisticated, and eventually it will potentially pass that Turing test. All right.
right.
Um,
Yes,
any
thank
other
you.
questions?
Right. The other one was instead of the cat and dog, if there was a blank. Um,
Yeah. So if there was a blank, what would you, if you just said, here's a picture with just no blank pixels, just all white pixels, what would it be? And sure enough, AI will give you an answer, by the way. It will say, this is, I think it is a 20% probably it's a dog and a 13% probably it's a cat. Right? Like, where do you get it from? It might very likely be because it will say that, most of the dog images you fed me had a lot of blank spaces around it. So I'm thinking this is more like a dog, right? It doesn't
right.
make sense, but technically it makes sense. AI is just doing it as it is trained, as the data it is trained on, right? But clearly we humans are better than that. We know that that's stupid, right?
Right.
But to answer your question, if you give it a blank image, it will actually give you an answer. Let's say this is whatever, 12% this is a cat, which doesn't make sense at all.
Right. Thank
Um,
you. Yes. Sonia H., you raised your hand. You would like to
Yeah,
ask.
yeah. I just thank you so much. This is very interesting. What are there some classes or something that you would recommend that we can learn more about this, or as we pivot our careers into something like this?
Uh, So good question. Classes. So there are many classes. I mean, technically, I lead a company where we do workforce training. It's called Great Learning. We conduct a lot of training on AI, but I don't want this to be a plug for my company, but you can absolutely welcome. You can connect with me afterwards. Happy to share what we train them on. But even otherwise, what I would say is the best form of learning is being able to use something every day, right? And you and I today have no excuse whatsoever to start using AI. It's right there in our pockets, right? And on the phone, you can go to Chat GPT or Gemini and think of any task you do. Let's like how just now we said, I have dinner to cook, right? So I need to figure out the recipe. I used AI for that. So think of how you can start using AI. And the more you start using it, that's the best way to learn, right? Learn by doing. So that would be my advice. But having said that, there are also a lot of amazing courses, including the ones that my company teaches, and happy to share more information on that.
Right.
Yes,
So, yes, go ahead.
yes, please share your information and I'll reach out to you.
Right.
Yeah.
There's also been quite a lot of interest expressed for a follow-up session where the more interested people will look at that. So there are some within here, and there may be others who have a greater interest in this topic. So we'll discuss with Milind Mam, and he has multiple things going on, but we'll try to see if he can schedule another a follow-on event where there is greater interest. So maybe taking on some examples of how actually to implement prompt and then implement certain things, a more hands-on session. So we'll consider that
Thank
definitely.
you so much.
Yes. Okay. Any other? I think yeah, there's a lot of compliments here. Yes, this session is being recorded and will be put on YouTube. So those who missed it or want to watch it again because there was some interruption for you, then it will be available. We will put it out. We have a CHF subscription on YouTube, and we will put it there, and you will get the links. So the Facebook, wherever we put this, right, same place, we'll put the link for you to click and watch it or forward it. Thank you. Any other questions from the audience? Okay, I think we are done here. Milind Ma'am, thank you for a wonderful and very engaging presentation. People waited till very late in certain time zones, so it was very informative and helpful. We will do Sabha Samapti at this point in time to end our program. So Ashok Ma'am, if you can do the necessary. Ashok Ma'am?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead with Sabha Samapti.
Okay. Nandantu sadhaka sarve vinashyantu vidushaकाः अवस्था सांभवी मेस्तु प्रसन्नोस्तु गुरु सदा सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखमाप्नुयात् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Jai Shankar.
Jai Shankar. This concludes our event. Thank you, Milind Ma'am.
Jai Shankar. Bye.